I haven't told this story much, but when I was entering the fifth grade, I almost lost my foot to an amputation. I don't think at the time I realized how serious things were until I got quite a bit older. I was over at my buddy's house, screwing around in the hot tub like a typical fifth graders would do. And one moment I was sitting on the side of the hot tub, and the next thing I knew, there was a devil's pitchfork looking thing. Literally, they called it a meat hook, but it literally looked like a pitchfork that had gone all the way through the center of my left foot. And then another prong of it had gone entirely through my right big toe. And so as I was laying in the hospital bed with two just mangled feet as a little kid, I remember asking my parents vividly, I go, "Can I play in my football game on Saturday?" Ignorance is bliss when you're a little kid and when you're a grown up, I suppose. For some pretty dumb reason, my friend's family had decided that the area outside a hot tub where kids were playing was a great place to store this weapon of foot destruction. Following the night one trauma of blood everywhere and a absolutely hellish hospital visit, things seem to be looking okay. For those that remember, my Oregon people, it was the night of the E. coli outbreak in Salem, so the hospital was an absolute zoo. I was waiting forever to get in. As I thought I was on the mend from this injury, the foot started to swell and it became infected. And maybe I didn't fully realize it at the time, but this was terrifying. My foot had literally swelled to about twice its normal size, and it was as red as the devil's you know what. I won't finish that metaphor. So if this infection spread, all bets were off. Luckily, I had a skilled surgeon who removed the infection, but losing a foot at age 11 for me was a pretty distinct possibility. So fast forward about 11 more years, age 22, to my college graduation. I remember finishing college and having this conversation with my dad. And he said, "Hey, so you actually have some money in an account. Now that you're done with school, it's yours." So I had no idea about any of this. But turns out that I had received some sort of insurance settlement from the family whose house the incident had occurred at back in the day. My parents, wisely, credit to them, just hadn't told me about it. These people, we certainly could have sued them to high heaven for what happened that night, but they were generally good people, and my parents weren't ever really the litigious type and weren't seeking vengeance, but they certainly lacked any common sense on this matter. So back to this account that I was inheriting or getting access to at age 22. There was $25,000 in it. So that's not exactly a Trumpian inheritance, but at age 22, it was way more money than I had ever had access to in my life. As far as I was concerned, I was rich. And better yet, I didn't even have to work for it. Most of the jobs I had worked to that point paid me maybe $10 an hour. Think working at the local golf club or cleaning cars. So this was an insane amount of money. I wasn't about to pull out the calculator, but that's a lot of hours at $10 an hour to make the amount of money that I just got for nothing. 22-year-old Matt knew it was champagne and cocaine, baby. Upon receiving this money, I spent my years between 22 and 26 being I believe the clinical word for it is fuckhead. I partied way too much. I had very few career, life, or monetary aspirations. I bounced from low paying job to lower paying job. And goals? Laugh out loud. At that age, I didn't have expensive tastes, so the 25K actually lasted a long time. Thinking about life these days in Manhattan, that amount of money lasts you about the time it takes to get from uptown to downtown on the 6 train. I would check the account from time to time, and the trajectory would always be downward. However, when you're splitting rent 5 ways and your nice meal out is a burrito at Don Pedro, shout out to my Portland people, you know Donnie P's, it takes a while for your funds to run out. Thankfully, after bouncing from Seattle to Buenos Aires, which is a city I highly recommend, guys, I spent about 6 months there teaching English, to Portland, the money ran out. I got serious, got my first sales job, and have been fairly focused since. That 25K I essentially won, air quotes there, probably cost me many multiples of 25K over those years where I did a lot of nothing. With that said, life isn't a math problem. It didn't seem like it in the moment, but I learned a lot from that time about what I did and did not want out of life. A common refrain of mine was that I was, quote, not money motivated. These days, I'm upfront about it. I'm very money motivated. It's funny how money motivation and my receipt of free money seem to have an inverse correlation with each other. Money that is handed to you is never going to hit the same as money that you earn. As Warren Buffett said, I quote, I want to leave my children enough so that they can do anything, but not so much that they can do nothing. The difficult part is that so much that they can do nothing is not as big of a figure as one would think. Warren could leave his kids billions. I had 25K. They're both golden tickets to do nothing. Mine just had a quicker expiration date. I had another friend who had a sizable trust fund and a free house handed to him at age 18. He predictably spent the next 10 years doing absolutely nothing. He was always the host with the most and was a lot of fun to hang out with or hit the bars with. I don't think he got his first real job until the music finally stopped around age 30. The other day I heard Morgan Housel. You guys will hear me talk about Morgan Housel a lot. I think he's the GOAT as far as finance and money writing. He was on a podcast and he said, depending on when money is handed to someone, it can be a tool or it can be a self-harm device. I'll read that again. Depending on when money is handed to someone, it can be a tool or it can be a self-harm device. For example, if you give your kid money to buy a home or start a business, that can be a tool. I'm a big believer in sharing what you have while you're here. After all, you can probably help your kid more at age 25 or 30 than at age 65 when they are hopefully already financially free. Plus, you get the selfish added benefit. You get to be around to see the impact of your giving. What's the point of having money if you can't use it to help and treat those that are around you? On the other hand, handing your kid a blank check, like my buddy above, with no explicit purpose for the money is a recipe for them to live a life of Xbox and Netflix with a dash, perhaps, of nightclub. Imagine getting a few $1,000,000 in your early 20s. Why in the hell would you ever be incentivized to work the typical 50 to 60K a year job that people get right out of college? There are only so many golf courses to play or Warcraft bosses to defeat, and life can get aimless very quickly if you have nothing you are working toward. Hey guys, we're taking a quick break, but before we get back into it, if you're enjoying this episode, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. It really helps us to keep bringing you more valuable content. And if you're on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, don't forget to leave a review. Please, it makes a huge difference. All right, let's get back to it. There's a saying that wealth never survives 3 generations. I had Ari Van Gemeren on the other day. He wrote a whole blog about this, and it's referenced in multiple different cultures. And it's, of course, a bit of a generalization, but the framework makes sense. So the framework looks something like this. Generation 1 is the creator. They build the business, they're intelligent and talented, and perhaps most importantly, they understand the value of money. After all, they did the work and witnessed the making of the money firsthand. Okay, Generation 2 is called the stewards. They were around to see how the money was made and have some grasp on the effort it takes to create wealth despite not earning it themselves. They live a life of leisure but still have some sense of the value of money. They may make efforts to preserve the fortune, but typically lack the drive or skills to expand it. And then Generation 3, guys, is the spendthrifts. They were born into it. All they've ever known is that money is no object. I mean, maybe they were little kids when the money was made, but they didn't really see what happened or what went into this. So they did nothing to earn it, but just know that there's always more, and it grows on trees or it grows on dad's credit card. And there's always more until eventually there isn't. Perhaps the most famous example of this cycle is the Vanderbilt family. Anderson Cooper, who I actually learned is a Vanderbilt, I had no idea, wrote a fantastic book on the family. Cornelius Vanderbilt, also known as the Commodore, built a fortune and became one of the richest men, not just in his time, but in the history of the world, by way of his railroad empire and multiple other business ventures. 2 generations later, the family specialized in building ridiculous compounds and living lives of opulence for the sake of opulence. Seriously, some of these quote unquote homes they had staffs numbering in the hundreds. You've maybe seen them. There's the Vanderbilt house down in North Carolina. There's one here in New York. They're absurd buildings, and eventually the kids couldn't afford them anymore. So none of the grandkids had any respect for money. After all, why would they? It had always been there. The cost of staffing and maintaining these ridiculous homes became more than they could afford, and the properties were soon turned into glorified museums. Anderson's mom lived out a solid existence in Manhattan and she wasn't necessarily broke, but all of the wealth was gone. So today I thankfully have a lot more respect for money. I love building a business for the sake of building it, and there isn't an end number in mind. And everything I have at this point is something that I earned. And I think when money is earned, it becomes a device that grants you entry to experiences, freedom, and taking care of those around you. When it's handed to you, it is often a voucher for listlessness and apathy. I'm glad my 25K lottery ticket expired at 26, because I firmly believe I wasn't going to get my shit together until it did. Thank you. That is a wrap for today's episode. Thanks for tuning in to the Saucetown Investor. If you got value from this, drop us a comment and let us know your thoughts. Did you have a big takeaway? Is there a topic you want to see us cover next time? Is there a guest you want to see interviewed? DMs are open. Business is at Saucetown Properties, and my personal, you can DM me personally, is at the Real Matt Cox 4. We'd also like to ask you kindly to please like and subscribe. You can also follow along with the Saucetown Investor blog. That's mattcox444.substack.com. Thanks again, guys, and until next time, keep investing and stay saucy, Saucetown.